on now. I'm promoting you.
Oh,
Hey everyone, I am shamelessly promoting Jen on Blue Sky right now, telling people to join us. Jen Budd, you know her, you love her. If you don't, you have to go subscribe to her wonderful Substack. Jen is, I think it's fair to say, she's a whistleblower, a former senior patrol agent in California who resigned in protest. And I didn't know, she just told me this. She resigned in protest, which means she doesn't get any pension for her years of work in Customs and Border Patrol, right, Jen?
that's correct. And I resigned before 9/11, so I don't have any IDF training or anything like that. I understood what these agencies were way back then. It just took me a long time mentally and to get over a lot of PTSD and the things that I went through in the Border Patrol to come to terms with that. And I've been calling for the abolition of Border Patrol since my book came out in, I want to say 2021, maybe 2022, 3.5 years, something like that.
And what is the name of the book?
It's called Against the Wall: My Journey from Border Patrol Agent to Immigrant Rights Activist. In that book, I clearly state, my opinions in the beginning and my thoughts that there were legal avenues and that this agency was honorable, like they said. But then I have to face my own prejudices and ignorance and racism. So that's really what the book is about. So when people go, "Oh, sure, now you've come out," like some people are seeing this old TikTok video from Al Jazeera that was done a long time ago, and they're like, "Well, sure, she now is talking about it." It's like I've been talking about this for a decade. So I understand people think I just up and quit and trying to get famous. No, I've been doing this work for a long time. So
Jen, I'm perfectly fine with anyone getting up and quitting right now, right? So just if
yeah,
anyone's
yeah.
listening who is in ICE right now, if you're like, you know what, maybe I made the wrong decision, and now that I see that the majority is repulsed by me and calls me the Gestapo, if that's what it takes, fine. But Jen's been at it for a long time. Found out that she lost her pension, and that's tough. To withgo the pension for your lifetime's worth of work because of a moral righteous rage against an agency that my words these are now where I come from, Jen. I was telling you right before we press record or play. I think they're terrorizing America. I use that word very deliberately. I call them the modern Gestapo. We've been saying that for over a year here on the Left Hook. I knew they would be used as the shock troops of Stephen Miller and the Trump administration. I have been saying that we have to abolish ICE. You've said it before when you came on the show, and I also said just to set the table. I was like, Jen, this is where I'm at right now. I've been saying, I think maybe once a day, that any Democrat who says that they support ICE. That's a litmus test for me.
Yeah.
If a Democrat right now says, I still support ICE, well, there's some good ICE. ICE isn't that bad. And they're willing to fund ICE, I'm done with you. And I believe we have to use all of our powers to primary that individual.
Yeah, I agree, and it's sad because right now there's a representative out of New Mexico. New Mexico has a very small piece of the southern border. It kind of dips down and they call it the boot heel that kind of touches the border. And there's a representative from there, a Latino man, I believe, who has this new reform bill out about ICE. It does. I don't think it talks about accountability. Don't quote me on that. I haven't read the whole thing, but it also recommends more money and funding for ICE and CBP. Done. Not going to
Uh,
happen.
don't
Not going to happen. And this is actually the problem this morning. I've been arguing with really what I call blue anons who feel that the Democrats are really easy on immigration and that they're trying to bring them all in and this and that. If you believe that Obama wasn't brutal to immigrants, if you believe that Biden and Clinton were not brutal to immigrants, oh boy, do I have a lot of news for you because you're just wrong. And truthfully, who says that rhetoric? It's the right. So if you believe that Democrats are soft on immigration and they don't control the border, then you're absolutely wrong about that, and you're just repeating right-wing propaganda. The problem is that both sides have supported this. Both sides have funded this to the hilt. And if we do not hold our Democratic representatives just as accountable, we are going to have the same problems. You notice right now they're not saying too much about this. They
Nope.
threaten to bring in National Guard and stuff, but then they never do it. Senator Padilla, Alex Padilla, is in the new HBO film Critical Incident: Death at the Border, which is on HBO and also streaming on Amazon Prime right now. I'm in it because I helped bring about the research to get this case before an international court, which found the United States guilty. And in that, you will you will see Senator Padilla, all he has to say was, "Wow, this is really troubling if it's true." And right now, nobody's saying anything about it. Right now, that film would justify Democrats bringing Rodney Scott up for impeachment hearings. Rodney Scott is the commissioner of CBP. The film is based on a killing back in 2010, but it's relevant today because he's in charge of CBP and he's still using these cover up teams. So they could impeach him right now if they would. Yeah, I boycott Amazon too, but I need this film to get out. I hear you, Nancy. But the thing is the Democrats aren't even talking about this. And why are
Nope,
they not talking about this? Because quite frankly, they're on board with this. They are on
absolutely.
board with this.
I think that's
Most
very
of them.
important. And
Most of them.
anyone who watches the Left Hook knows that I've been very critical of the Democratic establishment. I really, I'm going to quote you on Blue Anon, and the critiques that I was getting every time I criticized the Democratic establishment. Going back even a year and a half ago, the failure of the Democratic establishment and the Biden administration when it came to holding Netanyahu accountable, and I kept saying, how do you fight fascism at home if you literally endorse, fund, and support fascism abroad? Don't you criticize Biden? How dare you? You're dividing the Democrats. We have to think about moving forward. And this is something that Danielle and I have been talking about a lot now. Is how do you move forward without accountability, without truth, right? Everyone wants reconciliation, but there's no truth, Jen. And so the sins and ghosts of the past continue to haunt the present and continue to haunt the future. And let me connect it to what Danielle and I were talking about yesterday is white supremacy and capitalism merged together are the enduring sins of this country. And white supremacy with the badge is law enforcement and the history of law enforcement. Not all law enforcement, not all cops, but you see what's happening right now with ICE. And Jen, before we talk about Renee Good in a second, because I haven't talked to you about Renee Good, have you seen the ads that DHS, ICE, and Department of Labor are openly promoting the heritage, culture, remigrate? Uh, you know this culture. I've been studying this for a while. I've been telling people this is straight up, without any dog whistles, white supremacist language and conspiracy theories and talking points to recruit ICE members. You're the expert. Am I off on this?
No, you're 100% correct on that. It is flat out white supremacist. If you notice, they're not putting any drawings or pictures of the Latino agents up there to save their heritage. It's only white people. They've co-opted Norman Rockwell style
Yeah.
art, and they're using it as their own. I hate to tell these ICE and the Border Patrol itself. I don't know what the numbers are in CBP and ICE, but Border Patrol itself has over 50% Latinos. And quite honestly, it, that's what confused me when I first got in the Border Patrol because they're teaching us all this stuff. And I grew up liberal. I grew up completely liberal, Democrat. My family's always voted for Democrats. And I was going to go to law school to be a civil rights attorney when I joined the Border Patrol. I had a really bad family and I needed to get out of Alabama, especially as a gay woman. And the Border Patrol offered me a position in San Diego. And I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And I didn't know anything about the agency back in the 90s. You got to remember there wasn't an internet and we just didn't know anything about it. If you lived down here on the southern border, then you knew about it. But back in the 90s, they weren't really talking about it. That's not to excuse my participation in the Border Patrol. It's simply to explain it. And then it took quite a while for me to deal with who I was, and I ended up in 2015. So this journey that I've been on now for about a decade started in February of 2015 with a massive suicide attempt. That's why my hands are messed up. And I should have died, but I didn't die. And I decided in the funny farm when I was there, I decided that I needed to address this and really look at this. And then I decided to dedicate my life to telling people the actual truth of what is going on the southern border, and it just happened to coincide with all this. It's just circumstantial. And so I've kinda made myself, an expert in this. I do a lot of research. A lot of the reports and articles you see from, like, anything from the New York Times to all the way down to Reveal News and a lot of other things, I'm usually advised on a lot of that stuff. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. But if you read my book, you'll see that I flat out tell you when I beat a man. I'll tell you when I violated people's rights. And I had to be very honest about that. It took me a good 4 years to write that book. And in the beginning, it was all about kicking ass and being a badass border patrol agent. And then I realized, what are you doing? You got to be honest about this. And I really felt this is where we were going over time. I hoped I was wrong. But unfortunately, I was right.
I didn't know that. I'm so glad that you're still with us, and and the fact that you made something out of that tragedy and have found purpose. And I think this is you're doing God's work here by whistleblowing about these agencies which have a strict bro code where everyone's got each other's back, and to the point where they'll even cover up a murder in broad daylight that we have seen with our own eyes. I've
Yeah.
seen multiple videos now. I tried to be fair. I saw the videos of the officers. I saw Renee Nicole Good. I saw her wife and what she said. I saw it from every angle. Read the right wing news, read the left wing news, read the mainstream news, whatever that means, and
Hmm.
with the evidence of my own eyes, Jen,
Yeah.
it is clear to me that Renee Nicole Good, a mother, was sitting there in her car. Her last words were, "I'm not mad at you, dude." Unarmed. They knew she was unarmed. She got some conflicting orders. Her wife got out, was peaceful. Yeah, she talked a little shit. Who cares? Didn't spit at him, wasn't in his face. Took out her phone, unarmed. They knew they were unarmed in a friggin' what? A Honda Pilot. Just dropped off their kid. And this mother effer, this ICE agent whose name I don't even care about his name. He takes out a gun. Never I saw it, slow motion clips from every angle. The car did not touch him, Jen.
I know.
Takes out his gun, shoots 3 times in the driver's side window, kills her. His words were effing B, walks over to her, sees that he's killed her, then walks to his car, then drives away.
Yeah.
And there's 3 responses I want you to want your reply to.
Okay.
Donald Trump, before the body's even cold, says she violently ran him over and violently assaulted her, and then he doubled down in support of the officer on Air Force One. Your
Mhm.
response to the president of the United States and how he tried to gaslight the world.
He's just following the long line of over 30 years of these ICE cover-ups and involving Border Patrol as well and CBP, where the very first step in this, and if people read my work, I have a newsletter entitled The Cover-Up Teams on my Substack on Borderland Talks with Jim Budd. And in there, I only evaluate these types of cases, and they have secret and illegal cover-up teams. And the very first step in that is to control that narrative. And so what you see is you'll see their union reps, their press information officers feed whatever they want the narrative to be. Usually down here, it's to the media and to the press, and this time it's to the president, vice president, and Secretary Noem. And so they picked up that banner, and they're the ones that ran with it. So that's all that is controlling the narrative, and you should question it when anybody in law enforcement or any leader or the press comes out immediately with statements on something like a murder or a shooting like this because it takes evaluation. It takes time. And if it's coming from the people who did the shooting, hello, wake up. There might be influence there. And in this case, obviously there is.
And then speaking about a press conference and controlling the narrative and coming from the agency itself, the head of Department of Homeland Security, which is the, if you will, the big umbrella that has ICE created after the war on terror, Kristi Noem comes out and says the following. Renee Nicole Good was a, quote, domestic terrorist who, quote, weaponized her car, and this is how she is, quote unquote, trained. If you will, hearkening back to National Security Presidential Memo 7, that we have talked about on the show that was released in September, which unleashes the entirety of the Trump administration against uh, left wing radicals and radical left terrorists, and uses as indicators of radical left wing terrorism anti American and anti Christian sentiment. Around the same time, they declared Antifa to be a terrorist organization, even though they can't explain who organizes it, who funds it, who leads it. And then I thought it was very interesting that Christy Nome, while the body was still warm, called this unarmed mother, Renee Nicole Good, a domestic terrorist who was trained on how to weaponize her car against poor ICE agents who took out their gun and shot her. Your response to Christy Nome?
So the second step in these cover-ups is the agent is always the victim and the dead person is always the aggressor. It never changes. It doesn't matter what happens. That is the narrative that they are going to go with. And so you're right. I did an article the other day because I started putting it together that that memo came out on September 25th, 2025, just last year. And then within weeks, I shot Mary Mar Martinez in Chicago 5 times, and the agent, after he shot her, texted other agents and said, "5 5 bullets, 7 holes, put that in your book, boys."
Wow.
You know? And he also walked up to her and said before he shot her and said, "Do something, B word." And so this idea, this attitude that these agents have towards women, that's also it signifies the white supremacy, it signifies the fascism, so that goes along with it. It just, it doesn't surprise me at all, and they're just following the exact steps that I've laid out in all my writing of how this is done. It shows its pattern and practice, its policy, even though it's not written down so that we can see it because it's all secret, and they just keep getting away with it, and nobody will hold them accountable. I mean, even to messing up with the evidence that we saw when they dragged her body out and then God only know and then they won't share the evidence, keeping it from the actual investigators at the state and local level, which do have the legal jurisdiction. According to law, Border Patrol does not have the ability, and ICE and CBP, they are required, even if they have CBP OPR does have the jurisdiction, but they're still required to notify all agencies with jurisdiction. And so that means your state and local. And so what we see here is this is a problematic shooting. And so they are going to take all of the evidence for themselves and keep it out of the hands of the actual investigators.
Um, the third, and speaking about it, it's all lining up. Then we had 2 days later, excuse me, the next day, the vice president, JD Vance, does a press conference. And in that press conference, an unhinged press conference, he refers to Renee Nicole Good as a deranged leftist. And furthermore, he made this really remarkable claim that, polishing off my old law degree, I'm a recovering attorney, Jen, haven't practiced in
Oh,
about
okay.
15 years.
Yep.
He said these ICE agents have, quote, absolute immunity. I'm like, interesting. I think you have to return your diploma to Yale because last time I checked, they don't have absolute immunity, Jen.
Well, essentially, at the federal level, they kind of do. Because they have qualified immunity, and unfortunately, the Supreme Court has made it so that for any agent to be held accountable, they basically have to have had a prior case that was exactly the same before they can bring it to trial. At the same time, the DOJ refuses to prosecute the majority of these cases. Um, and certainly and since 2010 when, Anastasio was killed, I'm referring back to the HBO movie, Border Patrol itself has killed over 360 people. That's not including everybody that dies on the border because their policies push them out to the worst places in the world. That's just their immediate hands-on, how many people they have killed, and not a single agent has ever been held accountable. Um, and, I think when JD Vance starts saying that that they have absolute immunity. I honestly think what he's saying is that even if you convict him in, in federal court, Trump is gonna pardon them, right?
That
Um, yeah, and then they obviously they could be convicted in state, and local courts and superior courts. But what I'm seeing and what I think is happening, and this is an assumption of mine, this is just an evaluation based on my experience and my knowledge, is that we see Democratic leaders, mayors, and governors threatening these things, but they never follow through. And the reason
never.
why they're not following through, I think, is because they recognize that a huge amount of our police in this country are receiving funds from DHS. Now, whether that is to hold people in facilities, whether that is to work on what they call 287G contracts, where they act as ICE agents. Um, and a lot of times those mayors and governors will say, well, we're not doing any of those contracts with ICE. But have those officers at state and local levels received grants from DHS? Have they had training from DHS? Because we notice that a lot of the cops look like the Border Patrol and ICE agents with their little Fallujah outfits on and stuff. The problem is that these immigration agents through DHS have been funding and secretly training and getting them, and so they've taught a lot of these cops what they want them to know and how they want them to talk. And so, in a way, they kind of do have absolute immunity. I think that these mayors and governors are afraid to say, go and arrest this ICE agent, go and arrest this Border Patrol agent that did this crime, because I think that then they're going to have that confrontation that they're afraid to have, and they might find out that their police are not willing to obey their orders. I think that's what's and also, in all fairness, somebody wrote to me. I'm sorry I can't remember your name, but you're absolutely right. This is, if they do that, then the next step is civil war, flat out. So
Wow. And some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses. You have seen some Democratic officials come out and openly say there's no reason for us to fund this government because DHS funding is up by the end of the month. And one thing that Democrats can do is shut it all down. Maybe they should have kept the government shut down, and those eight moderate centrist Democrats couldn't, who are paid, by the way, by the airline industry, who decided to cave in at the last second. Well, guess what the Republicans did? Oh, they got rid of the Obamacare healthcare subsidies. And now Donald Trump says that he'll use his power as president, whatever, to make sure that those subsidies are expired. You saw 12 Republicans join Democrats last week in the House, at least, and say, yeah, we should extend them. So you see small little fissures, but you see the centrists, and this is where the blue anon comes out. But it's interesting, Jen. The blue anon for the last 3 weeks. They used to be on my case. Why are you criticizing? Ooh, now the blue anon is they're a little bit mute. The vote blue, no matter who, how dare you criticize the Democrats? You're helping the Republicans. Now they're like, wait a second. You might be onto something. Some of these people might be useless. They might be complicit. They might
yeah.
be part of the big same club. They might not want reformation. They probably want restoration. They're cowards. They voted for the Lincoln Riley Act. They've thrown immigration reform under the bus. They want to be Republican light on crime, and it never works. I don't think they care about us. It's happening right now as we speak. So, this strategy of not funding DHS, because DHS funding is coming up, DHS is the big umbrella organization that houses ICE. My take on this, Jen, is how do you justify if you're, I mean, I don't even care about the Republicans anymore because they're psychopaths, but if you're a Democrat and still have some professed loyalty to the Constitution, the rule of law, how do you go out in 2026, 2027 and tell people that you funded the same organization that's terrorizing communities and murdered a white mom in cold blood?
Well, I don't think that they say that. I think to us that they're gonna say, they often, like the Republicans, a lot of people ask me, "How is Noam and the president and the Border Patrol and ICE, how we can see that they're lying. So how do they get away with this?" And it's like, because 'cause they're only playing to one audience. So your people like Schumer and Jeffries, the leaders of the Democratic Party, they are kinda playing just to their funders and their constituents, and unfortunately, their funders are a lot of the same people who are funding the Republicans. Joe Biden took more money from border infrastructure in as far as technology, not from people building walls and stuff, but the people building the technology that's now surveilling all of us, that is
Palantir.
allowing ICE to now go to protesters' houses and threaten them just because they say, "ICE, get out of our town." They're now showing up at people's homes, and so Joe Biden helped fund that. I'm sorry, I hate to tell y'all that, but that's just the truth. So the Democrats, unfortunately, not all of them, but the vast majority of them are beholden to their funders, and that's the problem we have. That's the reason, quite honestly. I remember when Donald Trump got elected the first time, my wife is, I don't know, in her early 60s, 61, and I'm 54, and we grew up, obviously in the 80s and 90s knowing who Donald Trump was, knowing that Donald Trump was funded by Russians after he lost all his money in his casinos, and everybody knew this. Everybody knew he was a perv. We obviously didn't know to the extent with Epstein and stuff, but everybody knew this, and you see that the Clintons are involved. I just saw this morning that the Clintons are refusing to testify in the Epstein files. So this is what allowed somebody like Donald Trump to get into office, is that both sides, unfortunately, are extremely, extremely corrupt.
And it's complicit, folks. I know people don't like hearing it, but look, you've seen the photos of. I've said this before, and people the blue and on gets really upset at me. They're like, "That's an old photo." I'm like, "I know it's an old photo, but I'm sharing it on purpose to show you that they're all part of the same big club." It was Bloomberg, Clinton, George W. Bush, and Trump all golfing together, right?
Mhm.
It's a big club, folks. It's a big club at the end of the day. You saw Chuck Schumer laughing it up with Rubio a couple of days ago. Did you see the photo?
Yep.
Just bear hugging Rubio, right? They want restoration. And I want to give an example to people why I'm so harsh on them is because I believe I don't know what more evidence I can give people. Look at what they did to Mamdani. Look at what they're
Yeah.
doing to Mamdani. Look at what they did during the shutdown. Look at what they did to Joe Biden, who actually had a progressive economic agenda. It was the centrists who shut it down, not the progressives. Look at the too big to fail. A huge mistake of Obama, but at that time, being a black man with what he was going through, I think he was too conciliatory in this first term, too big to fail. All those financial institutions failed up and are about to f us up again with crypto and with AI. And now what
Mhm.
we've always heard from both sides of the aisle is, well, we need ICE. I heard this even last year from Democrats. Come on now, Waj. You can't abolish ICE. We need ICE. Come on, Waj. The people won't come around to this. And I said, you have to message. If you message, they will come. If you give them stories, they will come. And I don't know if you saw the latest polls. A majority of Americans, as of yesterday's poll, Jen, are against ICE. A majority of people don't want to fund ICE. A majority of people don't support ICE. Now, that number could be higher, but it is a majority. It's like a little bit above 50. The
Mhm.
number that I knew was going to happen, I've been saying this for 8 years, 28% to 30% support ICE, support the officer. I'm like, yep, that tracks. We've lost 28 to 30% of this country. I've been saying it for 8 years. We don't, fine. But we could get 70%, Jen.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
we have the majority. Tell me, your take on Democrats not saying abolish ICE as of today, January 13th, as of today, after the covering up Renee Good's murder, as of today, when we have video after video coming out of Minneapolis of them just terrorizing schools, citizens who work at Target. I'm sure you've seen that video, that kid they beat up who was brown, his
Mhm.
eyes shut. I mean, they're not ramming into cars, taking photos of people for Palantir technology, going door to door. You tell me, Jen, make the case for me why someone will say, well, no, you can't abolish ICE. We still need it.
Well, essentially, I mean, the Democrats dropped the ball for so many generations on explaining the truth of these agencies. My education and my knowledge of this obviously goes back to the Clinton administration when I was hired. And Bill Clinton is the one who adopted, in an effort to reach across the aisle and go centrist during the crime bill. And actually, that's what I was paid through, was through the crime bill. my hiring and my salary was. He adopted the Heritage Foundation's, policy that was created by the Department of Defense and given to the Border Patrol to push people out to the most dangerous places, and Democrats started limiting the amount of people who could legally apply, and on top of it, started then taking so you're deportable if you come here legally and you're within status, but you commit a serious crime, and there's certain levels. And what the Clintons did is Bill Clinton did was that he made it more crimes. So now you're getting in trouble. So, I mean, you might have had a DUI from many years ago that was dealt with, and you did your fines or did your time or whatever, and that was not deportable. And now all of a sudden it was. So all of a sudden they're making people who have lived their lives here for many, many generations undocumented and throwing them back in Mexico. We have lost at least we have killed, let me put it this way, we have intentionally killed at least 80,000 people coming to our southern border since 1994, since Clinton's policies started. And my job a lot of times was to pick those bodies up.
I mean,
And
80,000, that is,
yeah, and so they are just as bad, and so they keep going down this road of not wanting to educate Americans on the truth, not being willing to point to what Republicans are saying that's racist, that's a lie, that's not true. Yes, we have some people here that are violent criminals that we need to address. And they just don't will not invest. The quite honestly, a lot of the Democratic leaders that I've met are representatives, at least federally, and are senators, do not know shit about what's going on down here. The Republicans do, and that's how they manipulate it, and that's how they learn to manipulate it because they work hand in hand with Border Patrol. The Democrats come down here and they listen to the Border Patrol, and they only listen to the Border Patrol, CBP, and ICE and repeat what they say because they feel to not do that is unpatriotic. Before 9/11, most people don't know this. Before 9/11, the Border Patrol and ICE did not exist then, but it did in the sense of criminal investigators, which were old Border Patrol agents. And CBP was known as Customs. And the same shit was going on, the same cover-ups and everything that we are seeing now. And so this is a long-standing problem, and all of us on the southern border are seeing what people are going through in Minneapolis and in Chicago and going, "Mhm, yeah, that's pretty much what has been going on down here the whole time," and now you finally see. Now you finally see, and they do not believe that the Fourth Amendment exists down here. There are limited constitutional rights within 100 miles of any land or water border, and every single time the Democrats get in charge or have a chance to do anything, they just put more money into it. Because that, for them, for a long time after 9/11 meant more votes, and that's all they cared about. So they have not bothered, like, nobody's reached out to talk to me about this film. Nobody. And they just don't care. They are intending for the midterms and for the next presidential election, if it happens, to keep on the same rhetoric. And they might do what Joe Biden did in his election where he's like, "Well, we'll look at amnesty. We want to have legal avenues. I think it's terrible that you separated children." And then he turns right around and and goes back on his word on every single freaking thing. Are the Democrats better than the Republicans? I mean, when you have no other choice, yeah, I guess I'll have to vote for some of these schmoes. But, eh, I'm sorry, they're not that much better, and this is why we are where we are, and if we don't address this, we're gonna stay here. So,
I don't wanna gloss over that number that you mentioned because I mean, I think I've heard it in the past, but it just hits a bit different. You said 80,000 people have been killed at the
at
border,
least, at least.
and speaking about the HBO movie, it's about one of these murders, and I'm can you illustrate that enormity of that crime through the story of the woman who was killed in the HBO documentary that you participated in.
In this one, it was a man, his name was Anastasio Hernandez Rojas. He, was an undocumented immigrant who lived here in San Diego for 20 years, 20 plus years. He had 5 children who were in the United States. His his basic crime was crossing the border to earn a living and have a family. Um, and then one night he found himself in Chula Vista Processing, that's a little suburb down here in San Diego, and an agent asked him to put his water jug in the trash before he went into the processing center. And there was no problems in his apprehension, everything was fine, he was fine. And he took his water and he poured it into the trash can, probably just a misunderstanding in Spanish, or whatever, because he did not my understanding was he did not speak English. And, this infuriated the agent, Agent DuCoin, this is Border Patrol. And so, you can see him in the Chula Vista Processing Center. They claim he was so dangerous and all this other stuff, but he wasn't even handcuffed the whole time he was sitting there. So he's sitting there and he points to his foot because you can't hear the audio, points to his foot, and he's like, "No, you're gonna take me." And what you hear the Border Patrol agents in the processing center, say, in their depositions and interviews with the San Diego PD homicide unit is he was different than the other migrants. He spoke up a lot and he demanded his rights. And in Border Patrol speak, that tells me, oh, they were going to teach him a lesson. And this is what they did to Renee Good, is they taught her a lesson.
Yep.
This gets a lot of people killed with immigration agencies, is when you contest their authority. And when you question them, it kills a lot of people. And so the supervisor said, "No, everything's fine. You don't have a problem." But see, the thing is, Anastasio had a previous injury that had a surgical pin in it. And so he knew if they put him back in Mexico, then he wasn't going to get that. And so in order to get rid of him, they forced what is called a voluntary return, and that means they force him to sign a paper saying, "I give up my rights to have a hearing before the immigration judge, and I voluntarily will go back to Mexico." And so they don't charge him necessarily with a crime or anything, but it's also used nowadays as a way to get rid of problems. And so they were pushing him through a Border Patrol gate that all the agents have the keys to down here at San Ysidro Port of Entry. There's also a spiral stairway at the time. It's no longer there, but people were going back and forth between Mexico and the United States. So there were lots and lots of witnesses. And he was like, "No, no, you're going to pay for this. You're going to pay for this because I can't pay for this. I need to see a doctor." Two ICE agents see Agent DuCoin and Agent Philip Kraselwitz from the Border Patrol pushing him through, and he's kind of resisting in that he's pushing back and demanding his rights. Not hitting, he never hit anybody. He never touched anybody. He's just pushing back on them. And they proceeded to all jump on him and kick him and beat the tar out of him. They kneeled on his back. You can hear him screaming, "Ayúdame," which is Spanish for "help me." Um, and then you hear people screaming at him, "Leave him alone, don't do that." And so then they drag him, he's handcuffed behind his back, drag him over to another area where they hope that they can't see what they're doing. At that time, at least 12 CBP officers, so basically customs officers from the port, come and they surround Anastasio in a Rodney King style. And they proceed to take turns to beat the crap out of him, kicking, punching, whatever. Then a CBP officer, his name is Vales, Vales, all of a sudden starts screaming, "Stop resisting, stop resisting." Now, he's doing that even though Anastasio is laying in the fetal position with his hands behind his back. And they also took the man's pants off to humiliate him. And then then I mean, I don't mean to laugh, it's just so ridiculous. I'm laughing out of horror, but then they tase him 4 times. Vales does this. Now, in tasing, you're only supposed to tase for 5 seconds. It can be a little difficult, obviously, in chaotic times if you have to use your taser for a legitimate, use of force incident or this or that. I understand that. 2 of the tasings were for 5 seconds and 2 were for more than 10 seconds. One was for over 13 seconds. And that 13-second one was directly to his heart. and he stopped breathing. And his heart stopped. And it took one of the heads of CBP, of the San Ysidro report, to go, guys, he's not breathing. You need to get on him and do CPR. And so then they get on the radio and call an ambulance. And at this time, more Border Patrol agents and CBP officers are sitting on the side watching this happen. Even supervisors who are supposed to put a stop to it are just simply watching them beat the shit out of this man as people are screaming for them to stop. And we have the video and everything of them encircling him and tasing him and doing this. And when they're done and they've killed him, Vales looks up and sees all the witnesses. And he gets on the CBP radio and he radios for backup. And 2 female CBP officers, and then the private security, Paragon Security, which is contracted to help with security at San Ysidro Port, also showed up. And they proceeded to take everybody's cell phones that they could get a hold of. Obviously, they didn't get a hold of everybody because we have different videos, and actually go in and erase it. And so that we have agents from all three immigration agencies committing use of force violations. We have them getting rid of evidence. We have them obstructing justice. And then when Border Patrol requests the ambulance over the radio, Border Patrol dispatch, San Diego dispatch, automatically knows to call in the illegal and secret cover-up teams known as critical incident teams. And that's when the teams show up. They never called the agency with jurisdiction. None of them. None of the agencies with jurisdiction, because Border Patrol does not have the right to investigate their own use of force. They did not call San Diego PD that night. They did not call they did not call the FBI. They did not call DHS, Office of Inspector General. CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility did not exist at the time. They did not call any of them, and they proceeded to clean up the area and then label it as a medical incident. Then they went to the autopsy. These teams went to the autopsy while the San Diego PD homicide had no idea that this happened, and they proceeded to pocket the evidence. And then the thing that's most dire is the guy in charge at the time was Chief Rodney Scott. And today, Chief Rodney Scott is now the commissioner of CBP. And to fast forward, the Southern Border Community Coalition is the organization that made the complaint about these teams with my work and me coming forward to say, yes, these are cover-up teams, they are illegal. And then I did the research on it. So they filed the complaint with CBP, and it was during the Biden administration. And thankfully, during the Biden administration, they said, yeah, you're right. These teams are illegal. They are not allowed to exist. And we were like, okay, let's have hearings. Let's open up the files. We have tons and tons of people, like I'm friends and close with a lot of the victims. There's an actual group called the Border Patrol Victims Network on Facebook, where a lot of these families go to try and get justice and try and at least talk to each other and get some kind of trauma healing after all this. Unfortunately, and I wrote an article on it at the time, the Biden administration had the chance to do the right thing. And what did they do? They covered up the cover-up teams. They rolled them into CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility, which is CBP's internal affairs, that also investigates Border Patrol as well. And you should know that during that time, the head of CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility Investigations was a former Border Patrol agent. The majority of their investigators are ex-Border Patrol agents, ex-critical incident team members. And eventually, basically what they did is they legalized them. So Biden legalized them. They have the agents in the Border Patrol critical incident teams take off their Border Patrol critical incident team T-shirts and put on, and they resigned, and then they got rehired by CBP, Office of Professional Responsibility, and they are now doing the exact same thing. So what I saw when I look at the murder of Miss Good is the exact same thing, where they follow the steps of controlling the narrative and this and that. And so it's so ingrained in everybody there. At the same time, what they started doing after I was agent, is they brought in agents that they felt were what we call it in Border Patrol is bleed green
Mm.
when you're really, like, hardcore. And they bring those agents in and they train them in the critical incident team cover-ups, and then they send them back out to the field. So there's agents all in the field that maybe aren't part technically of the critical incident teams, and certainly because they technically don't exist anymore, but they're still out there. They've been trained by it and they're still, and so what you saw with even these ICE agents, they do the same thing. Each agency has its own system of cover-ups. One thing I had hoped when I was researching this was that CBP would recognize, "Oh, these teams are illegal, and let's just deal with it and create a team," because CBP, Office of Professional Responsibility, does have jurisdiction to investigate things like that, but they didn't. They continued it until, for over 20 years, and then they still the way they did it is the procurement for forensics evaluation, they hid within CBP's Office of Professional what was it? It was CBP's Laboratory Science Services, LSS. Sorry, everything's an acronym in the government. So they were hiding that they were buying these teams equipment instead of
Wow.
just saying, "Hey, we evaluate this. This is wrong. Let's move it to here." So you see this over and over again. In 2009 or 2010, when this happened, at the same time at DHS's Office of Inspector General down here in San Diego, um, it was led by another one of my classmates, or not led, but one of the investigators that handled a lot of the cases was one of my classmates. So we put our agents everywhere, and as you see with this agent that murdered Renee Good, Jonathan Ross, one of the things I said, but I didn't want to put it out there because I didn't know. I told my wife, I said, I bet he's a Border Patrol agent. And because what happens is Border Patrol agents get tired of being stuck down on here on the southern border, and their families wanna move to calmer, less militarized places like Ohio or wherever. And so they join ICE to be able to do that. And so it's very common for ICE to actually be ex-Border Patrol agents, and that's where they learned all this stuff.
I mean, I thank you so much for that. While you were speaking, you mentioned this. It's a rinse and repeat with Renee Nicole Good.
Yeah,
They demonized her. They spun the narrative. They lied to our faces. They're engaging in a cover up, folks. For those who don't know, as she was dying, or probably already died, there was a physician in the audience. There's a video. He said, "I'm a physician. Can I go check up on her?" They said, "Shut up." And then it took about 45 minutes for the medical team to come. She was, of course, already dead. As Jen has already mentioned, the FBI is not sharing evidence with the Minnesota local police. They've completely locked them out. And furthermore, if there was no cover up, why wouldn't they just be transparent? You have nothing to hide. You have nothing to lose. Why the lies? Why the spin? Now they're calling her a domestic terrorist. Furthermore, they're attaching her to their bullshit Antifa, saying that she was trained by them. And now there's an excuse for them to crack skulls. As Lev Parnas, who's a former Trump fixer, comes on the show a lot, says that they are itching, Jen. They are hoping. He said they're chomping at the bits for more protests because they want a protest and even a riot or something.
yep, yep,
Because to justify the Insurrection Act and to unleash the Gestapo to crack skulls, so they are now, if you will, deliberately inciting crises. So you saw now Bovino and others at Targets. You saw them drag out that teenager who's a citizen, yelling and saying, "I'm a citizen." They beat him. His eyes is completely shut. They're people are just sitting there recording them. They get really angry and pissed off because they have small peepees, Jen, and then
yeah,
they're tackling these people, right? "Stop following me." They opened up a car window, dragged that guy out. They're dragging out legal observers. And folks, sorry for Jen, I think you might agree with what I'm about to say. This has been happening forever. It's been
yep,
happening with black bodies, brown bodies, Muslim bodies, Arab bodies, anyone who looks Muslimy or black and brown. And now the war has come to the suburbs. ICE has been unleashed, like we all said, against white folks. And if
yep.
a white unarmed mother is not safe, what do you think is going to happen to you? And speaking about women in particular, the culture of misogyny, because all these videos and what you've said, what I've seen is these videos that are now posted, and that's one of the major ways of accountability is witness, folks. Because as they're gaslighting us, you have to share this and we have to spread the truth and we have to message accordingly. So as far as accountability goes, spread the truth. It's important. And the eyewitness testimony. But I've noticed, Jen, and I want to ask you about this. They really, they really, really, really hate unarmed, young or middle-aged, harmless white women simply disagreeing with them. Because I've seen video after video after video of women simply saying, nah, nah, I'll keep filming. No. And when a woman says no to them, they seem to lose their mind. The culture of misogyny within CBP and ICE, am I just making it up? Are these some bad apples, or this is part and parcel of the ethos there?
Okay, I see people asking for the name of the doc. It is Critical Incident Death at the Border.
There you
Um,
go. That's the link.
yeah. And so the only thing in my experience in the Border Patrol, I was not in ICE or CBP, but like I said, the culture is the same. My experience is that they really hate women. The only thing they hate more than women are migrants. And I base that off of in the Border Patrol. So we've had female agents in the Border Patrol since 1975. And in 1975, our first Latina agent at the academy was Ernestina Lopez, and they raped her, and she complained about it. And so they fired her. And she ended up eventually becoming a customs agent back in the day. And she's like 85 years old now or something. You can hear about this on a podcast called it's from Reveal News, and it's called, I think, The Fearless 5%, because as I said, that's what we're called. We're considered to be tougher than other women because we survive our sexual assaults and hazing. Um, 20 years later in 1995, I was raped just a few weeks, about a month before I left the Border Patrol academy. And a lot of times the thing against the wall is also kind of, the title of my book is also kind of a metaphor for, like, people are like, "Well, how did you do that?" Because obviously I knew there was a problem with this agency even when I entered. Um, but quite honestly, I felt like I just needed to prove myself and be a good agent, and obviously this isn't everybody else. I did not understand the systemicness out of it. Fast forward to 2019. In the Reveal News podcast, they did it again in the academy, and they've done it many times that we don't know about. There's not a single female agent that has not either lost a position or had to put up with either outright sexual harassment or outright rape. I mean, obviously not all of them have been raped, but it's some form of misogyny and harassment. Um, and you only get promoted to the highest ranks if you're willing to cover that up as a female agent as well. Um, what I think is very important that a lot of people are missing and nobody talks about, and I'll try to be quick because I know you have other interviews today, um, is you have to understand that a lot of the adults today were born in and around 9/11 or after 9/11, the people that are in these agencies. And prior to 9/11, everybody pretty much knew Border Patrol was crooked and piece of shit agents, uneducated, brutal and all this other stuff. Everybody knew that. But after 9/11, even though the immigration agencies, Immigration Naturalization Service, INS, which is what Border Patrol is under, were the ones who let the terrorists in and were never held accountable, they have been given the honor and valor of now protecting all of us from these so-called terrorists. And so a lot of these people grew up with the idea that all they've seen is the propaganda. They believe that these agents are honorable and all this other stuff. I saw, oh, what's her name? The president's press secretary,
Levitt.
Levitt.
Yeah.
I
Yesterday.
saw her yesterday come out on the driveway of the White House and say, these people are all pedos, they're all rapists, they're all this and that. And I'm like, sweetie, have you ever seen the U.S. Border Patrol? I mean, do you know how you get your 5% title? And I have documented this over and over. The Reveal podcast documents this over and over. And it continues today, according to female agents that I talk to. Since 2018, at least in the Border Patrol alone, I've tracked that they have committed more violent crimes as a population, Border Patrol agents have, than the migrants they arrest every year. And that explains what you're seeing today. These agencies are filled with people who could not get jobs as regular cops. Not everybody, obviously. I had a college degree in law. I had an honors degree in law and was gonna go to law school. There are some people in there. There are still some good people in there, but the system and the management of these agencies are corrupt. They are brutal. They did this for power. They do this for money. After they get out of the Border Patrol, they go and work with the companies that they help get contracts into the government for all this border militarization and stuff. This is incredibly corrupt. And as far as I'm concerned, all three agencies and anybody else, FBI and anybody else who's been doing these raids, they have violated their oaths to the Constitution. That's it. You don't get another chance. You don't get, "I'm sorry, I understand you didn't know what you're doing." They literally know what they're doing. They are literally selling T-shirts in these agencies right now with the oath that I will promise to defend the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic. And then in parentheses, they put, well, mostly domestic. And you have to understand that as these current agents were going through high school, a lot of them belong to Turning Point USA.
Yep.
And Turning Point USA says Charlie Kirk himself, before he passed, obviously said, we have to stomach what we need to do to quote unquote these illegal immigrants. And then he said, after that, we need to go after the others. Well, the others are people like you, who's a Muslim. The others are people like me, who's a lesbian. That is what is happening. It is not a mistake that they killed a white woman, a lesbian white woman who was trying to defend migrants. They consider anybody who is not a sycophant, anybody who does not let them get away with their crimes, they are now calling a domestic terrorist. And I'm just not going to stand for it.
And I do think there is something to be said about the fact that her wife, right, who physically is a little bit more, like I think you could say less feminine, a little bit more butch, but like, they were together. So I'm sure the ICE officer, I mean, she didn't say, hi guys, we're a lesbian couple, but I'm sure the ICE officer saw these two women, saw
There's
him,
a rainbow sticker on the back of their car.
Yeah, there you go. Rainbow sticker back in the car, and her wife was not in their face, but wife was being like probably how I would have been, like a little bit snarky, but still respectful. Meanwhile, Renee Nicole Good was super respectful. He goes, "I'm not mad at you, dude." They were, being First Amendment rights. She took out her phone, got back in the car. She didn't throw anything. She didn't swear. She didn't yell. But her being mouthy and there being two women, and then he, like you said, he probably saw the rainbow sticker and he's like, ah, these lesbians, these, and he probably used another word in his mind and he said, let me show them. And then she reverses and then she moves over. He goes, how dare you? Bang. And then you've seen this, folks, video after video after video. Women just saying no. Women being calm like I am right now. Women being slightly flippant. Women not being intimidated. Women laughing in their face. Oh, that pisses them off. Black people, brown people being, wait for it, uppity. That's the word that was used in the 19th and 20th century. So if they can do this to the rest of us, what will they do to you? And speaking about the culture that Jen is talking about that they're attracting, in the last week and a half, reports have come out that ICE has spent millions of dollars openly, folks. They're not hiding it, recruiting and hiring at least 12,000 agents, offering them money, and saying it's wartime recruitment to protect the homeland and heritage. And furthermore, they're going specifically to these right wing internet circles that Jen is talking about, right wing groups, TP USA. Notice, where are the Proud Boys? Where are the Oath Keepers? Where are a lot of the neo Nazis? Recruited by ICE, where the bar is now low, just like for the FBI. You had to be actually somewhat smart to join the FBI, not anymore. Now you just have to be willing to crack skulls, follow the code, repeat the same talking points. You've been given a gun, essentially absolute immunity, according to JD Vance, a mask, and you too can get revenge against that girl who rejected you in high school. You too can go crack a black skull or a brown skull, and oh, how they really want to crack a black skull. And Lev was saying that his sources inside the administration are saying, "Shit, it's a white woman. Why couldn't it have been a black man? Because I realized if it was a black man or a black boy, it wouldn't have mattered. And Jules, I was gonna get there. One of us for all of yours. Now, for those in the chat are asking ourselves, what is Jules talking about? Watch, what do you mean? Who's watching? People are watching this on video on YouTube. One of us for all of yours. When Christy Nome was speaking at a podium, there was a placard. One of us for all of yours. I know what it means, but Jen, can you explain to people what that is?
It's a white supremacist statement that means essentially, if you harm one of ours, we're going to kill all of you. And that's exactly what they intend to do. People need to take them seriously. These people who I was on Minnesota or Minneapolis, I'm not sure what the M stands for, public radio over there, right when this happened. And I did 2 hours, and there were a couple of men that called up and said, "You just need to do what they tell you to do," and this and that. She was doing what they told her to do. She was not blocking the road. She actually waved other people to go ahead of her. That shooting was bad just on a law enforcement standpoint for a lot of reasons. He violated policy left and right. He was too close to the vehicle when he circled around it. What I also notice is that he holds a cell phone in his right hand, which happens to be his gun hand. I know that because his gun is on his right hip. That's a big no-no. He's supposedly a firearms instructor. You're not supposed to occupy your gun hand when you're working. So he goes around the back. If he was terrified of these women, he wouldn't have gone so close to them. And then he also makes a third mistake in that he is right up against the front of the car, which in
Mm,
2013 the PERF report, that's the Police Executive Research Forum, had researched Border Patrol and said, you all need to stop allowing your agents to put themselves in the path of vehicles. This is being used to justify their shootings. You need to stop this. And that was done when Ross was a Border Patrol agent in Texas. So he knows all this and he teaches this, and yet he still does it. He switches the phone to his left hand so that he can draw. That's when she panics. And I have looked at that video slow-mo. I've looked at it over and over. He is in front of the vehicle, but he is right to the right
yep,
of the front headlight. And he actually reaches over and leans into
yep.
the driver's side windshield so he can get her. And he leans across the hood and the bullet goes into the right corner of the driver's side windshield showing. So if Minneapolis PD still has the car and the body, then they could do probably trajectory based on the video and stuff. I don't know if they turned that over to the FBI. But then on top of it, you're not supposed to shoot people in vehicles. Number one,
There you go. There you go.
what she did at worst was a traffic violation, which ICE does not have the legal authority to enforce, and they should have called the Minneapolis PD if they wanted to deal with it. But the reason why you don't shoot into vehicles was what you just saw, because when you do, a lot of times it either kills them or it incapacitates them, and their foot hits the accelerator and they fly off down the road and end up killing somebody else.
He
Everything
violated.
he did. Oh, and then the last thing that he did wrong as a firearms instructor. I was not a firearms instructor, but I was a very good shooter. I will say that. Last thing he did wrong as a firearms instructor was that he shot with his partner right next to the window. And if you look back at it, his partner's in the window trying to open the door and get her out. He shoots right there, and the partner goes like this with his hand, like he got a ricochet almost. I don't know if he did or not. And then you see him after the car drives away. They're looking at him like, what the F, man? What did you just do? But these agents will, of course, all get together. The shooter, the leaving the scene, that's all normal. Saying he's in the hospital even though he's not injured, that's all normal to make you think that the agent is the victim. This is all uh, pattern and practice that they have done over and over, and they've got this down to a T. Everything I saw is how the critical incident teams and the cover-ups always, always, always work.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I've been trying to ever since I read this a couple of days ago. I've been trying to bring it up in every conversation. Is that he violated ICE protocol? So, like
Mhm.
literally on camera, you have him violating the protocol that they are taught. You're not allowed to discharge your weapon in a moving vehicle. You're not allowed to discharge your weapon in a moving vehicle with an unarmed driver, precisely for what you said, because now you have another weapon literally craning perhaps on the road 40 miles per. He did all of that, folks. And Bill O'Reilly, the way they lie to you, the way they lie to your face, Bill O'Reilly said, well, he discharged the weapon while he was in front of her. Okay, this is the car. This is him. Uh, please explain to me, Jen, how he was able to shoot through the driver's side window if he is allegedly here and this is the car. Can someone explain how the physics works? How the bullet went through here, then what? They're lying to our face. They're lying to our face, and now they're covering it up. And there's some breaking news that happened just 5 minutes ago, 11 minutes ago. Three prosecutors quit after push to investigate ICE shooting victim's widow. This is in the New York Times. Joseph H. Thompson, a career federal prosecutor who was the acting U.S. Attorney of Minnesota last year, quit after the Justice Department sought to examine the woman's supposed ties to activist groups. Let me read the first paragraph. Three Minnesota federal prosecutors resigned over the Justice Department's push to investigate the widow of a woman killed by an ICE agent and its reluctance to investigate the shooter, according to people with knowledge of their decision. Joseph Thompson, who was second in command at the U.S. Attorney's Office and oversaw a sprawling fraud investigation that has roiled Minnesota's political landscape, was among those who quit Tuesday, according to three people. Mr. Thompson's resignation came after the senior Justice Department officials pressed for a criminal investigation into the actions of the widow of Renee Nicole Good, who was killed by ICE agents.
So this is normal. This is another part of the steps that they do in the cover-ups is they investigate the victim and they investigate the victim's family and they target them. They will not put any investigation other than trying to prove that their agent was actually the victim. They will not actually conduct a real investigation. In Anastasio's case, John Carlos Frey, who is a journalist in the movie with me, he he found a video that showed when the agents were surrounding and beating him up in the Rodney King style 2 years afterwards. The victim didn't wanna give the video up because at the time she, I believe, was dating an undocumented man and was afraid for his life, and she was afraid for her own life. And so, when he finally brought that forward, the Department of Justice refused to even look at it, even refused to look at it. And so they will just ignore the evidence that they don't wanna see. They will make up the evidence that they want. In Anastasio's case, Rodney Scott put out that he tested positive for meth. He tested positive for an amphetamine of some sort because the EMTs pumped him full of drugs to start his heart. And all the drugs that they said, I was like, "Does this cause a false positive?" And then even the emergency room, yes, it can cause a false positive, but they are gonna paint them out to be either they're on drugs or they're Antifa or they're crazy or they hate ICE or this and that, and then try and justify everything. Even JD Vance, when he said, "Well, this guy, he was hit 6 months ago." Now, by another car, and so he's sensitive. Number 1, he shouldn't be on the job if he's sensitive to that and if he's scared, if he feels the need to shoot people in cars. I personally, when I was an agent, was run over by another agent on Border Patrol property on purpose because I was whistleblowing at the time, and he told me to shut my mouth after he ran me over. Do I then have the right to take my gun out and shoot every Border Patrol agent that's around me in a car? No, I do not. And so this agent, if that is even true, I don't know if it's true because the only picture I saw of him supposedly laying in a hospital bed did not show his face. It was blurred out. And you should expect that that might not actually be the actual officer because the officer that shot Miss Good and killed Miss Good, murdered Miss Good, was kind of chubby. And I don't say that to be mean. I'm a chubby woman myself. And the guy in the hospital bed was not very chubby at all. So you should doubt that. They will 100% investigate the people before they actually investigate the agent and whether he violated this person's
Yeah,
rights.
I
That's
kept it a
standard.
bit long. I've kept you a bit longer. I've been selfish, and so I'm going to just keep you for 8, 9 minutes. And then we have at 1:30 for those who are watching, we have another very important conversation about what's happening in Iran. Trita Parsi is a fantastic expert on Iran, so he'll separate fact from fiction, the lies from the truth, and then talk about the protests, what's happening on the ground, the repression, and other foreign actors, including the Trump administration, who are trying to meddle, and of course will make everything worse. But speak about accountability. Thank you all for listening. There's about 2,200 people here. I'm talking to Jen Budd, former senior patrol agent, border patrol agent in California, who quit. She's been a whistleblower. She has a fantastic memoir out, which I will again share. Against the Wall is the name. She also was a consultant and was interviewed for this fantastic new HBO documentary that came out a couple months ago, Critical Incident, which talks about basically the culture of CBP, Border Patrol, and ICE, and how they just straight up murder people and cover it up. If you've been joining us late, she talks about the murder of an immigrant, and it's literally tit for tat what we're witnessing right now, folks, in Minnesota. And we all kept saying, "Hey, man." If they can do this to brown, black folks, and Muslims, it's one of these days they're going to do it against white folks. And a lot of white folks are like, nah, it won't affect us. Only the pro-Palestinian activists and the trans and the Muslims and the Arabs, right? And the blacks and the undocumented will be okay. Fascists come for everyone, folks. Fascists come for everyone. So, speaking about accountability, the latest poll shows that Donald Trump and MAGA are not winning the hearts and minds of people. He's negative double digits on immigration, that used to be his strongest issue. He's negative double digits on the economy, Jen, negative double digits on healthcare, negative 30 on the Trump Epstein files, right? According to the latest polls, I think the number is going to go up, up, up. Most people are horrified by what they saw. They do not support ICE and the murder of Renee Nicole Good. The number that you'll keep seeing, 28 to 30%, folks, that number ain't going to change, who support MAGA and Trump and whatever they do. But he's lost the majority. Before we talk about the Democrats, let's talk about the people. How can the people, the majority that is horrified by this, hold ICE and all of our elected officials accountable before we get to local, Democratic leaders and national leaders?
Demand that, your local, state, and federal leaders stop contracting with ICE, demand that there be accountability, and anybody who puts forward any bills that add, more money to these agencies and refuse to hold them accountable, anybody, quite frankly, who can't say abolish ICE, because ICE was established in 2003, I believe, right after
Yep.
9/11. We didn't have it before, you don't need it now. So, these agencies and their leaders are violating the Constitution. Bovino is encouraging all this violence. Every time Bovino goes to a site, his agents get more riled up and beat the shit out of I watched them beat the shit out of a man at a gas station, a young man at a gas station, a Latino, to the point they handcuffed him, and then they had to pick him up, and he was like this. He's either dead or he's unconscious, and nobody's saying a word about it. ICE isn't even talking about it. So you have to start telling your politicians and your leaders, this is what we want, this is what we demand. At the same time, you need to be in the streets. If you hear about an action going on around your house, if you can, you need to get out there. They are going to hit you with pepper spray. They are going to do all sorts of things. And quite honestly, you might end up dying just like Renee Good, but we're all going to end up dying if we don't do something about this, quite honestly.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because, I was going to say, as you were saying that, everyone be safe. They want to crack skulls. They
Yeah, they're looking
want
for excuses.
they want to kill you. And you might say, "Watch, how can you say that?" They believe they're in war. Stephen Miller has done wartime recruitment and has recruited these folks from the fringe of the right wing, who's probably now the mainstream right wing. And they've been taught and indoctrinated for the past 10 years to see us as pedophiles, rapists,
Yep,
criminals, evil, devil worshippers,
yep.
child traffickers, and now Antifa. So literally, they have been programmed to look at anybody who opposes them as the enemy, and as such, they are saving their heritage, their homeland, and their culture by killing us. These are the words that they use. And again, I want to remind you, for those who are watching us, that the Department of Homeland Security, no one asks them this because our corporate media is broken and they don't understand white nationalism or white supremacy. I just wish they had an expert in every single, department, excuse me, every single news station. The Your DHS secretary openly is standing behind a podium in which they said, "One of ours, all of yours." That was literally used as a slogan and justification by the Nazis to go and massacre people. One Nazi was killed, and then the Nazis during Hitler's time used that to just massacre a town. And they said, "One of ours, all of yours."
Yep.
Literally, folks, I said this without exaggeration. That is what they're saying now. And remigrate, which the Department of Homeland Security has now tweeted 3 times, is a white supremacist term for ethnic cleansing. And for those
Yes.
who don't know it, I talk about it often on the Left Hook, just so you all know what we're dealing with, is because corporate media is not going to talk about it, and we're going to have these euphemisms. Oh, there's a racial trip up and a racial flare up, and I just use the words, Jen: fascist regime, Gestapo, white supremacists. Remigrate means ethnic cleansing. They want to get rid of all brown and black and Asian people and biracial people in Europe and America and reclaim the homeland for the whites. So these are the people they are recruiting. So I want you all to be safe. But we have to put our bodies out there. We have to be eyewitnesses. I do believe in the power of more and more videos coming out. A report came out, I think it was Zeteo or Intercept, or maybe Ken Klippenstein, uh, uh, pardon me, where these ICE agents are feeling the pressure. They're like, "Oh shit, we don't have the numbers. People don't like us."
It's
You
Ken. Yeah.
Yeah, Ken, right? Thank you. That makes sense to me, Jen, because we're human animals. We're social animals. If you know you're part and parcel of a group that is loathed by the world, that fractures. These are the fractures that we're looking at, small little fractures. So we got people, they don't have the numbers. We have to speak the truth. We have the messages. I agree with Jen. Abolish ICE. Jen, I've said this before, I'll say it again. These are my litmus tests for Democrats moving forward. Do you still suck at the teat of the corporate oligarchy? If you do, get the F out. If you're not willing to tax the rich, I'm done with you, Gavin Newsom. They're not part of my tent. His words, they're part of the big tent. Get the F out. I'm from the Bay Area, folks. You can't sell me on Gavin Newsom. Number two, do you still support Netanyahu and the genocide? You can't fight fascists at home if you support fascism abroad. Number three, are you willing to throw everyone under the bus to get ahead? That's how we have the Lake and Riley Act. That's how we have ICE. That's how we have the war on terror. Speaking about Gavin Newsom, he threw the trans community under the bus. He remember, Jen, on his
Yep.
podcast a year ago, he invited Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon and agreed with them. And then my
Yes.
fourth litmus test is, if you are not for abolishing ICE, Jen, I can't support you. If
Yeah.
you are supporting a Gestapo organization that literally has declared war on people that look like you and me and is willing to murder us, I'm done. Uh, what can local, what should Democrats do who actually are in a blue state like Minnesota, who actually have the mayor or the governor or the lieutenant governor in Chicago, in California? What do you want them to do that they haven't done yet?
Absolutely everything they can do. Cut their contracts with ICE. People should not allow ICE into their restaurants. Absolutely everything, and just say something. Not like, "Oh, this horrible thing happened and it shouldn't be happened." No, you need to come out and say that ICE is violating the Constitution, that ICE is killing our citizens, that they are use of force violations, they are murdering our citizens, and they are getting away with it. And they run these cover-up teams. These agencies are corrupt. It never was about criminal immigrants. It never was. The whole point of these agencies, if you haven't noticed, Border Patrol is absolutely in love with Donald Trump, is to overthrow the current government that we had before Donald Trump got in, which I admit wasn't that great in a lot of aspects. We have the opportunity right now for Democrats to make it what we want it to be, but unfortunately, what they're saying they want it to be is to go back, and we don't wanna go back. We wanna go forward. We wanna stop this.
And we want to stop it. And I do want to ask you this: can't they? I know they won't, but I mean, can't the local police and the National Guard keep these people in check?
Yes, they can, and that's something that I think I haven't said on this. So the reason why I think, and it's just an assumption of mine, but
Right,
uh,
right.
I think that our mayors and our governors are afraid to do anything, because if they tell their police, "You need to do this," then I think they're gonna find out if their police really agree with them or not. So far, what we've seen is their police somewhat agree with them. They're helping them do perimeters. They're going after citizens, ticketing in I know in Minneapolis, they're ticketing people who even get near ICE and follow ICE. So they're helping ICE. And they're helping them behind the scenes even though that they say they aren't. These governors and mayors are afraid to say, "Go and arrest this ICE agent," and have their police go, "No, I don't think so, man." And the reason why they're gonna say that is because a lot of their training and stuff comes from DHS.
Ah.
Yeah,
Folks, we
I
tried
know.
our best to warn, we tried our best to warn, but here we are. But you know what I'll say, Jen, we'll end on this, is that there's more of us than there are of them. And what seemed impossible in the past wasn't possible until it became possible. There was the
Yeah,
Boston Massacre, right? British Empire said, "Look at these colonists. They're weak. They're pathetic. They're Americans. You better kneel." And then they exerted their force. They brought out their shock troops, and then there was a Boston Massacre. And little by little, with each indignity, with each violent assault on our civil liberties, with each cover up, the resistance grew. More and more people became radicalized towards justice, and they became less apathetic, right? And so I do think there's something within the American blood, if you will, the American um, DNA, our collective, if you will, consciousness that says, "Nah." Like, after a while, they say, "Nah." I'm hoping, that, enough. I mean, it takes a while, it takes many dead bodies, it takes so much pain and suffering, but I'm hoping, folks, that they've overreached with the murder of Renee Good, they've overreached on the cover-up, and they've overreached in their cynical, if you will, lack of faith in their fellow Americans. They thought that fellow Americans, honestly, Renee, I've been seeing them, I go on Twitter and MAGA, they thought fellow Americans are sick and cruel and psychotic as they are. They thought the rest of us would, like, applaud this. They really did. And
they
and I
did.
think that and I think they're realizing, "Whoa, oh, shit. Oh, people are horrified by this. Oh, okay." Um, Most people are horrified by this, folks. And so we need all hands on deck. We need, and I've said this before, Jen, I mean, no disrespect to all the good whites and spicy whites who are watching. We need white folks in particular. This country reacts differently when there's white bodies, Jen, when there's white tears, when there's white blood, when there's white rage. I hate saying it, but it does.
It's true.
Um, and so, don't let Renee Nicole Good be murdered in vain. If this is what wakes you all up, if this is what wakes up your grandma and grandpa, if this is what wakes up a lot of the white folks in your family who are like, this just used to happen against black and brown people, but holy shit, they're doing this against Renee. Use it. Use it. Use it to wake up folks. And we need to get all of us out there and have a multicultural coalition because they're coming for all of us. They're coming for all of us. And if you think I was lying this whole time, I give you literally the murder and the cover up of the murder of Renee Nicole Good, a white mom who had dropped off her kid and was driving a Honda Pilot. And her final words were, "I'm not angry at you, man." And it still wasn't enough to keep this freak from taking out his gun, killing her, and then calmly walking and driving away. Sorry for my rant, Jen. Jen, how can you shamelessly promote yourself, please?
I have a Substack called Borderland Talk. I also run that as well on Ghost. If you don't like Substack, you can go to Ghost and see that. I have a YouTube channel called Borderland Talk, and then I'm also on Blue Sky. So my book is called Against the Wall: My Journey from Border Patrol Agent to Immigrant Rights Activist, and I'm currently in an HBO documentary called Critical Incident: Death at the Border, which can also be seen on Amazon Prime.
And Jed, what's the best way? And let me shamelessly get you some money. What's the best way people can financially support you? Is the Substack?
It is a Substack. They can also do that from, the Ghost, website as well, and I just wanna say that if you think I'm getting rich off of this, I'm not. Upwards of 95% of any money I make goes either into my research or to actually Border Patrol victims who have and their families. And I also put that money into water barrels in the Sonoran Desert with Humane Borders as well.
I've posted that her Substack. Go subscribe right now. It's her name at Jen Bud. And for those who are watching us late and or reading my write up or joined us late, the nearly 2,500 people, this conversation will be up later today on Jen Bud Substack and the Left Hook, and also on my YouTube channel. Go if you have some money, give it to Jen first. Become a paid subscriber. Also, go buy her memoir Against the Wall. I will link to it. If you have a few dollars left over, I have the Terrible Capitalists New Year's special, where I have kept everything for free on the Left Hook. If you have no money, that's fine. Subscribe. If you have a little bit of money, give it to Jen. And if you have $3.75 left over, I have a Terrible Capitalist New Year's special on right now. I just sent the link. Become a paid subscriber. We're like Blanche Dubois without the melodrama. We depend on the kindness of strangers. But if you don't have the money, at the very least, just subscribe, like it, and share this conversation. And if you have some money, give it to Jen. Like she said, I'll say she's doing God's work. And when you're doing God's work and good work, shockingly, Jen, you don't get paid that much. Have you noticed? It's
Yeah,
interesting.
I don't it's funny because I don't the right wing, they get so much support. I don't get any support from NGOs. I have no grants, no nothing. So, actually, most of what I pay for is quite honestly out of my wife's own money that she works for. But yeah, it's,
Uh,
and all my work too on those things, you don't have to pay to see it. You could see it for free because I believe it's that important. So if you can't pay, don't worry about it. You can still see all my work.
I do want to. I'll end on this real quick, but I see a nice comment from Betty. Betty says, "quote I disagree, Waj. People I know react to assaults and deaths of peoples of all colors. I think you are overly prejudiced against white people. I love you, but dot dot dot." If I may respond, um, throughout American history, the sad fact and reality is that white supremacy, misogyny, and capitalism are enduring sins. And as a result, those people who have the complexion get the protection and fail up. Oftentimes, that is those with white skin. If we see when it comes to sentencing, convictions, jobs, hiring, firing, bank loans, it is those who, with the white skin, sometimes get the leg up. When it comes to slap on the wrist versus gun in the face or bullet in the body, usually, historically in America, the lighter and wealthier skin gets the slap on the wrist. Those who get to fail up, those who don't go through the prison to pipeline system. When it comes to the war on terror, we still have a war on terror against drug criminals and Muslims. The number one domestic terror threat in America is white supremacist terrorism. Not a peep, not a peep by the Trump administration. So when I say this, I'm not talking about all white people, clearly. But what I'm talking about is a system, and I'm talking about a mindset that I'm sorry, I know people hate hearing this, has benefited the white skin and those who are part of the white tribe more than the rest of us. And I know people don't like hearing this, but I'll say it again. If it is a white person, yes, it motivates and moves people more than it is a black and brown person. Because if you don't believe me, there have been at least 30 Renee Goods in the past year who've been killed by ICE. 30. One of them was found hung. There was literally in Georgia, what was his name? Ahmed Arbery was lynched while walking. Breonna Taylor was shot and killed for sleeping in her car, right? Again and again and again and again, it happens. So if this is what it takes, a white mom to wake up a lot of folks, so be it. That's why I say what I say. I didn't mean to. It was not me calling you out, Betty. It was just me responding because I hear this from a lot of white folks who say
Could
this
I
to me
say
when I
one thing,
criticize white
Wash,
supremacy.
before we go?
Yeah.
Do you think I'm going to ask Betty, and I'm not trying to crap on Betty. I'm just trying to educate Betty because I understand where she's at. Let me ask you, Betty, do you think people would react to 80,000 men, women, children since 1994 being knowingly pushed to the deserts and the rivers and the mountains to die? Do you think anybody would talk about that if they were all white? That's what you need to ask yourself. They
And
would
that's
go
where we are.
crazy if it was all white people, but it's not. It's brown people and black people.
That's how it is, folks. This is how it is. Open your eyes. Trust the evidence of your eyes and ears. Thank you, Jen, so much. I'm late with Trita, but come back in 30 seconds, folks. We'll have Trita. Everyone else, be kind, be informed. Go subscribe to Jen. Give her some money. Buy her book. And then also, if you can't subscribe to The Left Hook, everyone else, I'll see you in a minute. Thank you, Jen. Come back anytime.
Thank you. Thanks, Wash.